They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole we found. And I was thinking.
Hi, this is Nikolai, and you're listening to my dad, Rafal, co-host James Jardine, and featuring Mr. Jim Tiller on the one and only Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Plug in, listen up, and enjoy.
Deep into this pool of regrettable situations. Pitch black, think back to the last time that we were happy.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole to another edition of your favorite cybersecurity podcast, the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. This is Raph. I've got the full complement of crew today. James over my left shoulder that way, Jim down that way. Hey, guys.
Howdy. I guess it's a good thing we're not on each side of the shoulders, because then we would fight over which one's the good and the bad.
Yeah, that's different. I most people have like an angel and like a devil, the thing. I just have two competing thoughts. I don't know if either of them is good or evil. And they're often, what's worse is they conspire against you. No, I'm just kidding. All right, moving on. I've got a returning guest for you guys. The topic is interesting. Over the last couple of years, the difference between conspiracy and news is about 90 days. I've heard that a lot. I've said that a lot. And after we had Doug on last time, we had a conversation about something interesting to do with the internet. And I was like, I need to sit and ruminate on this for a while. And the time felt right, like right now. So Doug Cabot, welcome back, sir. Good to have you.
Well, thank you for having me back. It's a pleasure. We're very excited.
All right. So the topic is the devaluation of the internet. I would also take as suggested titles the collapse of the free internet as we know it, or as the REM song would go, it's the end of the free internet as we know it. And I feel fine. Doug, what's the premise? Like, set this up for us, and then we'll figure out where to go with it next.
Well, the economic model of the internet since, forever, I think, has been the case of display ads and the fact that people would click through on things, and that's how you would monetize. And that's how Google started, that's how Facebook, all these people have got that as their main economic engine of display ads. And that's where the content providers got their money. They got their money off of display ads for the most part, in terms of you would put an ad on your website, you would do something interesting content-wise, you drive traffic to it, you drive engagement, with maybe having people have conversations going back and forth and whatnot, and that's how you'd pay the bills, and that's how you would be incentivized to create new content, because you could get more engagement, get more ad impressions, and get more money out of it. And the issue I've been noticing is the fact that since ChatGPT launched, you can see this in the graphs, a lot of websites are suddenly starting to see all this traffic drop way off. Because what happens is you go to your search engine, you type in something, and you get either a little AI blurb at the top, or people now being trained to do AI directly. And so they're not engaging anymore and going to these other websites. And so where this is really, I think, getting to be kind of interesting is people aren't talking about, well, what does this mean? Does that mean that we're starting to see content now start to be static? And I think there's some arguments to be made that may be true, that we may be seeing the fact that there's no reason to go out and create new content in some ways because you're not going to get paid for it. We just had this huge lawsuit that got settled from one of the AI vendors for $1.5 billion. But if you look at it, the number of works it's over, it says your book is valued now at $3,000. Is that enough money for your book to be able to go out and write a new book? Some might argue yes, if you have a terrible book, but some would argue no, it's not, because there's a lot of effort and a lot of work that went into making that book. And so there's a whole economic argument here about AI. And then you got this other piece of this, which is even more pernicious, which is the snake eating its tail problem, which is the fact that you get people creating AI content, then that gets into the search engines, and then people search AI content with AI, and that returns AI results, and then you go back to the beginning. And this has got to be a
recursive erosion.
And this has got to be a huge problem for people like history websites. Because, now we're getting all these people who are doing these AI created histories that babble on for 3 hours about all kinds of things. And the other thing that really scares me about history is a lot of history is interpretation. You get a lot of, just facts, but there's a lot of interpretation. Why did somebody do something? I went to ChatGPT yesterday and I typed in, a particular historical, question. I said, why? It gave me an answer. It didn't give me reasoning. It gave me some reasoning for it, but it didn't give me any other historical views on why, or, what maybe alternative views on that, or any opinions or anything else. It just said, this is why. And that was it. And that's what a lot of people are accepting. They're accepting now the whys for things that may have more underneath them that you need to go through. The other thing is showing up in technology is specifically. I don't know if you guys remember or have been programmers, but Stack Overflow was, I kind of lived on Stack Overflow. Since ChatGPT came out, Stack Overflow's traffic has gone down 60%. It's gracefully cratered, so much so that last year they did a deal with ChatGPT to actually partner with them because their content stuff was cratering. And what's pernicious about that is what I loved about ChatGPT was that you would get an answer it was most voted and was the most relevant answer, but that'd be at a particular time. And you go down to like the third or fourth answer, and that one may be like from last week, and that was actually the better answer because it was more timely than the one that was up here. So which one is the AI picking? Is it picking the one that's current, or is it picking the one that was high voted from 3 or 4 years ago? And then,
all right.
I can babble on and on, but and then the last one I'll just throw out there is that I just worry a lot about AI, in this sense, how it's incentivizing code in crypto because, everybody knows if you're a security practitioner, you never ever write crypto code because that's what that you can never get it right, and we have AI writing crypto code all over the place. But that's the premise for what I'm concerned about.
Okay. So let's dissect this because that as they say is 20 pounds worth of candy in a 5-pound candy bag. We'll say candy because the kids listen to the show. Let's start with the traffic one's interesting. The Ouroboros discussion that I think that might even spawn something else. But I like this. I like this is what got me thinking because you're right when how much of the internet that we use today is free, and it's free because of ads, right? And ad blockers and stuff like that have put a dent in this, but ultimately there's still a human, and it's forced advertisers to get better at creating better ads and more relevant ads so that we look at them and we click them and they get me fairly regularly because I still buy stuff off the internet ads. I'm sorry. I'll go to confession for that later. But I still get lots of remember when As Seen on TV, I buy a bunch of that stuff and I don't know why, but I fall for it. But if more and more of that traffic isn't human and it's bots and scripts and engines that's scraping gathered data, we're gonna get in your Stack Overflow example is good. It takes money to create good content, to keep things moving, to keep the bills paid. And when traffic on those drops, you hit this vicious downward spiral that's really hard to pull out of, right? Because you get less hits, less money starts coming in, so you have to let some people go or cut some corners. People notice, and it's an accelerating downward spiral that ends in a 404 page not found error at the end of it. And I just started thinking, the first time we had this conversation without recording it, Doug, I just kept thinking, at what point does the current premise of the internet, the thing that us people that are in our, we'll say of a certain age, above 35, this is the internet, maybe above 30. This is the internet that we grew up with that was largely free, ad supported. At what point does that just flat out collapse in on itself? Jim, James, any thoughts, guys?
Well, the more that we have synthetic people, I like a better term, or synthetic processes that are doing things that appear to be people doing things, which let's call it duck a duck. I mean, there's already been large scale fraud with regards to ad revenue, to go back to kind of Doug's comment about using this and creating scenarios. Well, AI is going to make that better, right? Be able to do that. So the more of the economic fabric that we have based on our people coming to a website and creating these links. I mean, look at Google. It's almost entirely based on a scoring system of how many people go to a site, and that gives it a quality function that makes it higher up on the list. As an example, we already have like SEO to make that happen. So it's getting to, all these things are getting to a point of the basis of the metrics are going to be poisoned by the computer systems that they're trying to facilitate. So are we going to see content quality go down, ad revenue go up? Are we going to make more ads, like more pop-ups, more intrusions into the use of the internet kind of thing? I don't know.
I wonder if this goes a different route, Jim. I wonder, as we're sitting here talking about this, the searching that we're used to, the Googling that existed, does that go away? No more do you get the links, and you only get the Gemini response at the top.
That's unacceptable, though.
Going out and searching is going to be, hey, I typed this, it gives me the results that are best suited for me. No longer do we have the, and you're more into prompt engineering to, this is what I'm looking for to cater my results. And then when does the ad revenue start moving into those results and that it's not based on?
Oh God. Oh
That's
my
it.
God.
The AI answers.
Wait.
What happens is now you're paying and saying, hey, Google, tell your AI, rank me higher for these results because I'm going to pay you to show up in those results.
So hold on. So this is where it gets. I think we just hit. You took something that we were already talking about and you smashed on another bad thing. Thanks, James. So we're talking about the diminishing quality of, or maybe even volume of click-based ad revenue to drive, because of bots, that drives ad revenue down ultimately and potentially leads to some catastrophic event out there. Maybe not. Maybe it spirals down metrics. Maybe people figure out how to, maybe ads get more expensive because they're targeted differently. I don't know. But that second thing, Doug, does that scare the hell out of you too? Because I'm concerned. Like we talked about this too off the record, where I like the fact that when I go to Google or Brave or whatever browser I'm using, or DuckDuckGo, whatever browser I'm using, I ask the question. It gives me back the background data for me to make a decision because I have the gray matter here that can do that. I have critical thinking skills. Is AI the modern use of AI? And I think MIT did this study. The more you use it and just take the answer it gives you, the dumber humanity gets. And are we, Doug, this one's for you. Are we just careening headlong, foot to the floor, YOLO, eyes closed into like the world of Wall-E?
Well, I mean, I'm an eternal optimist, so I'll caveat that, which is a rarity in security, because there's no reason for optimism if you're in security. But anyway, I think that there's possibly some ways out. I mean, even Google recognized this problem so much that they're actually put together a service they call OfferWall, I think it's what it's called, but they're actually selling a micropayment service to make up for ad revenue for folks. So you're actually, what I'm starting to see is the balkanization. So basically what's going to happen is you're going to have all these little paywalls everywhere and all these little walled gardens of people who are doing content. And so to the extent that you're popular and doing things, people are going to go to that walled garden and consume content in there. But to your point, it's just going to create a bunch of polarization and a bunch of silos where this stuff exists, and you don't get as much cross-fertilization across things as you did. And then this is the curation problem. What we're doing is we've automated curation. In some cases, that's fantastic. I mean, in some cases, you can curate things that with automation. In other cases, it creates some other issues. I mean, there's a whole argument for the fact that all those rabbit holes, to be topical, are important when we go out and search stuff, because you discover things that you may not have known. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone and looked for a particular coding thing and then found a different GitHub. And you look in the GitHub and there's other code in there that's really interesting that tells you down a whole different path than what you were trying to go in the first place. All that discovery goes away. You get an answer and you go off and do something else. and there isn't as much discovery going on. And so that's it's not just the fact that you're getting prefab content, which may or may not be great. You're also not looking any further in terms of what's out there to see what's going on. You're not necessarily going down a bunch of rabbit holes to see things. And you could argue there's inefficiencies in that, and I won't dispute that. But there's also a lot of learning and a lot of other synergistic things that come out of doing that.
But do people do that now, though? Honestly, right? I mean, people who you know what I'm saying. I think a lot of people are just that's why I think why AI is so popular. I can go to ChatGPT. People are searching in ChatGPT now, right? Like I don't need to go to Google. I just want the answer. I don't want to zing around the internet. I want it now.
There's different kinds of searches. I mean, I absolutely, I just want to, I want to know what 2 times 2 is. That there's no ambiguity there. I just want an answer and move on, go do something else. I don't want to explore algebra. The flip side is there's a lot of technology stuff, and especially security, that has a lot of things that take you down into different areas that you're just going to get an answer. Does that take you into other places that you may need to know about? No. It just gives you an answer, and so that's where I'm saying that that's an issue. But trust me, I'm as much 2 times 2 as anybody else.
I'm apparently you guys are talking benefits and weighing good ideas versus bad. I'm over here in the corner with my tinfoil hat going, he who controls the knowledge controls the world. And at least there have been lots of people complaining that Google, due to their political leanings, we'll say, if you were back in presidential elections, if it noticed you liked one political party and you said, hey, how about that idiot, blah, 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 they would give you content that would affirm your thoughts. And if you liked the other presidential candidate, it would give you that content to affirm your thoughts. It was at very least radicalizing people, at very worst viewpoint skewing in a terrible direction. However, now I have a new fear. Thanks, guys. And as I listen to you guys talk, that as people stop actually doing their own research, okay, and I know the negative connotations for that, go yell into the void. I think do your own research is extremely important because that's what this industry was founded on. Somebody said it's blue, and we went, hold on a second, come back to you and say, no, it's not. I've got 17 pages of evidence that says otherwise. So if all you're doing is using ChatGPT, asking what is the favorability rating of the Prime Minister of England or France? Well, we know that one. I guess that just collapsed. But what is the favorability? And it gives you a number, and you're like, oh, that must be the right answer. How dumb are you? I thought we were going towards idiocracy, as James pointed out, pretty quickly. I think we're on a bullet train at this point. And we're just like, la, 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 I don't care.
Isn't that what we see, though? I mean, read any social media post. That's what people do today. Not through Google search, but I mean, John said this, it must be right, and we go with that. And I think that's where we're seeing search engines going to that route of saying, right, you know what, I don't need to show you. I posted in the chat, right? I would love to see Google stats for the number of searches that end in no follow-up clicks because the AI at the top told me what I needed, right? And I think there's 2 classes of people. You've got people that are just looking, I need to change the radiator in my truck. If I did that search, I guarantee you Gemini would tell me. It would be like, do this, do this, do this. I don't have to click on anything to follow a video. I don't have to, right? Because it consumed all that. Then you've got more of the technology, the development. Hey, you know what? I really need to dig into this because the surface answer is never going to answer the question. And I have to follow through, right? And then my world I created, right? That's I guess I need to reprompt. Let's do all these different things to get these different responses back. But
the fact checking, let's call it fact checking, right? There's the easy answer. Then there's the answer you get. You're like, oh, that's satisfied. Like to Raph's point earlier, right? But what's happening is people are no longer really fact checking anymore. So you can get away with providing the wrong answer, and everybody gets the wrong answer, right? And everybody thinks that's the right answer. So nobody is reading anymore because our social economy is not based on necessarily your knowledge. It's your ability to go get knowledge. You're right.
Yeah.
And then if you go get the knowledge, then I know I don't really need to know the detail. I can just do an AI search or a Google search and give you the top results.
Listen,
kind of thing. So the culture is changing.
I've been saying the same thing in security industry, right? I mean, we started off with people that were in depth, could do packet analysis, we could do all this stuff. Now, most of the people in security couldn't do any of that. They can read what the tool tells them, and the tool says this is, a severity of high or it's critical, but no ability to dig deeper into that. It's definitely an issue. What I think is interesting that you brought up, Doug, was the idea of like mini paywalls. To where the idea with AI, we've had this conversation before, is give it as much as possible so it has the information to work on. So we go to the idea like, wow, and I think this is how the industry is going to try to stop AI from taking over, is they're going to go put these paywall. We're going to solve the problem of them scraping our sites. And that'll be a mini paywall, which will block off the information that we really should be getting to. Right. And then basically what they'll do is say, hey, look, maybe we have an option that, hey, give us access to your site to scrape your data, and we'll start giving you ad revenue based on how many times your stuff shows up in the. I'm not going to bias the results, but the better content will show up more, and you'll get paid for that.
Wait, but AI is both is an inference model and it's non-deterministic, which means how do you tell it to serve like effectively stealth ads when it's you I mean, Doug, can you program that? I don't feel good.
I would make an argument you can make a prompt for anything, if you work hard enough at it. And so, there's, we've already seen malware prompts and everything else. That's a whole other topic area to go into. But I think that, there is the possibility of there's already content poisoning going on. There's already folks that are actually using AI to spread out as much information as they can that's incorrect. And then it gets picked up and then it gets synthesized as being what is the truth. And so that there is active negative. It isn't the case that it's uncurated. This is negative content that is by definition trying to optimize to get, turned into an answer. And that's happening aggressively in all kinds of places. And the other problem we're running up against, in that regard is the fact that we're also going to create digital haves and have-nots, because to the extent that we have all these paywalls going in, suddenly, it's not free search. It's, I need that content. So I had to subscribe to that thing over here to do that, or I got to pay Google to get past all their offer wall stuff to do that. And so are we going to start to see tiers of AI content coming out that says that, I get the great answer if I pay more than I get with the lower answer, as they try to monetize and sort of, try to basically, justify all these valuations. I'm interested to see how the monetization of this is going to come out in the end. And I bet you there's going to start to be tiers of answers you're going to get. And we're going to get this very much a stratification again of where if you've got cash and you pay for whatever's the thing is that they create, you're going to get a different level of answers than you do if you're not. And it's not going to be this this great sort of egalitarian Republican flat thing. It's going to be this very lumpy landscape where the haves and the have-nots again come out in different areas.
How do we get out of? Because this feels like I've got one more thought on this data thing, and then we'll move on because I want to cover one more topic. But guys, in a minute or two, how the hell do we get it? This feels like a death spiral. This feels like a knowledge, like peak knowledge in peak civilization based knowledge, like knowledge that's institutionalized in groups of people. We've passed that. We've now given knowledge over to the curation and keeping of knowledge over to computers, and computers hallucinate and they'll make up stuff and they'll manipulate because their overlords will tell them to. And we're going to get dumber as a society at a rapid pace. Look at your neighbors, guys. This we are getting rapidly dumber. The industry that I thought was some of the smartest people in business, our peers, are getting rapidly dumber at an accelerating rate. Sorry, true facts. How do we get out of this death spiral short of like John Connor showing up and blowing up all the AI companies and sending them back to the Stone Age? And why is that the best possible option? Somebody answer that question, please.
Well, all I can point to is analogies, and to some degree, I think that there has to be you have to hit people always take the path of least resistance to what Jim was saying, and I think that's always going to be true, and so I think that you need to start having other ways to think about this that will start to get you down other paths that will are also least resistance. I mean, we've gone through this before. I mean, the analogy I would argue that you could make is that if you think about it, back a few tens of years ago, all the manufacturing in the U.S. To a large extent, went overseas, and so we had all the manufacturing suddenly, and it went to where it was cheaper and faster and everything else. The quality was bad, but you could get it cheaper, faster, and more. And so all that went overseas, and it got to the point where people started recognizing, wait a minute. Not only do we have this economic dislocation, but we also have the fact that we're, this is now a national security issue, and we're not, we're giving away all this intellectual property, and things are falling apart. I mean, all those things are there, and you could make an argument that there's to some degree true with AI is that it's like we're outsourcing our intellectual manufacturing. We're not manufacturing anymore in a new intellectual content because we're outsourcing it to some cheap labor out there that is AI. To do that, and the quality is coming back to be, we're getting lots of it. We're getting lots of it very inexpensively, but the quality is terrible. And so, so you can think about it, there's these analogs, and so how are we solving that problem? Is places I would look to say, well, how are we doing this? And so, answers to this are things like Etsy, stuff where you say, this is for humans by humans, curated, and you can have an Etsy for information. If you think about it. That's things like that do that. I mean, there's certainly other interesting ways to think about them.
That existed in the late 90s, early 2000s. There's a startup called Keen, KEEN.com. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Doug, I think you remember it.
Yeah.
The team at the company I was on got hired to go help them build that out and scale that out. But that rapidly declined and went away because Google. All right. Last topic, because we're running out of time, and this needs to be – we mentioned AI. So right now, as it stands, we still have human-developed knowledge and content being read and regurgitated and remixed. I think the best phrase I can call it is remixing, right? AI is not creating new songs, it's remixing. Maybe that's okay for now. But these remixes then, like for right now, we've got real content being read and worked upon and analyzed and producing non-original or original, however you want to phrase that, right? Derivative content of real stuff. Now that stuff that's machine generated goes out into the internet, and then another AI picks that up with all its hallucinations and flaws, creates new content based off of that. And now derivatives of derivatives of derivatives become indecipherable psychobabble. And once again, we're idiocracy. That's the Ouroboros for me. That's where the snake eating its tail is. You've got AI producing content that other AI reads, takes as gospel, creates new content that's a derivative of that's even more hallucinogenic. And as you go, you get more and more and more deviation from reality and actual truth. Am I crazy? And again, when is John Connor coming?
I don't know about you, but I need Sarah Connor. I think she'd do a better job.
Yeah, she's probably better.
I mean, it's a good point, right, Raph? I mean, it's a telephone game. I mean, that's what's happening. I mean, you whisper the name into this one person, let it go down the line, and what they spit out at the end is nothing to do with what came out. But I think to our point earlier, there's so much lack of wanting to digest whether this is quality or not. It's, this gave me an answer. I mean, what we see, there was something not so long ago, somebody like poisoned themselves because they followed a recipe that AI generated for them. With the idea that I don't remember what ingredient was, right? But listen, I'm terrified of it. My son comes in, he's like, I'm going to go make cookies. I'm like, what recipe? He's like, I found it on the web. Well, what the heck's in it? Like, is that safe for you to put in your food? I mean, but we're even raising generations of this where it says, oh, AI, it's going to answer everything, that we just look at it and trust, like, oh, it must know best. If it, it says put rat poison in here, it seems odd, but maybe that adds to the flavor. Let's load it in. But we're not questioning that. So with the manufacturing, it's interesting, right? Because you can start to see, hey, look, this is purely junk. But at the same time, how many people are still buying pure junk every single day because they don't care that it's not high quality, right? I mean, unless you're dealing, I used to work with a ball bearing factory, right? Unless you're dealing with the ball bearings inside of something that's important. I mean, if it's just the fidget spinner sitting on your desk, so what? It was made in China. It's a piece of crap. I don't care. If it's the tiny little ball bearing that sits inside the hand grenade, I might care if that's quality or not, right? So most of the stuff you're getting is garbage, but you don't care because it doesn't affect you.
Is it the collision of an arc of technology getting sort of indecipherable from human interaction and the arc of the decline of critical thinking sort of intersecting?
Yeah, I think that's where we're at, Jim. I think that's the perfect way to describe it. We've hit that perfect technology overload, YOLO style apathy in younger generations. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I'm sure going to get lots of hate from the millennials and such for that, but like us Gen Xers and before, like we actually did go do our own research because we had to go look it up. We had to use card catalogs and encyclopedias, y'all.
Going to the library?
We had to go to the library for stuff, and AI didn't just tell us. We had to go read it and understand it. Man, critical thinking skills are taking an absolute nosedive. This podcast is depressing as hell. What have I gotten myself into? It's we're recording this on a Wednesday morning, and I want to end the week like right now. Like this is please stop. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I have never wanted to go buy a tiki bar on a desert, like on a deserted island somewhere more than I do.
You know what the problem is though, Ref, is that as we cross this intersection, right? You brought up back in the day, right? Like you go to the library, you could look up an encyclopedia. Like that was kind of the truth. As we start going to the world I painted, which I know everybody is loving, that, Google search is just ChatGPT. It just gives you an answer, no links. Where do you go to then do the deeper research, right? We don't have this written down in books everywhere. We don't have this. So you still need something that is the old school browser that's still indexing and, if I want this, I can go check out 50 sites versus the abstracted, I put in a prompt and I got a response back, right? Like, where do you go at that point? There's no more library to go to that all this stuff is being cataloged in. So is it some underground DARPA funded site that people go? Are we back to, bulletin boards? If you really want the info, that's where you go. Like, how's that work?
I call it the crisis of curation. Who's curating things? It used to be that was like higher education, things like that. You would, because Encyclopedia Britannica was written by experts in the field. They go to the PhDs in the academic world and have them write the articles that went into those encyclopedias. And you could argue whether they were good. Some cases they're good, some cases they weren't so good. They would propagate old broken things, but at least there was some curation and accountability associated with that. That we've lost a lot of that. The other thing that's going on is we do have Wikipedia. Great. We have at least something that's there that has some crowdsourced curation going along with it and whatnot. But I'm curious if Wikipedia's economic model is starting to falter. I mean, I could probably guess that their traffic is down, and that there isn't as much people going to Wikipedia. They're just getting the answer coming out of their whatever their AI, and they're not going to Wikipedia. And so if that economic model starts to falter, then how's that going to keep in play and how that's going to happen? So, I mean, and this is not a new problem in some ways. You could argue that the curation of history has always been the issue of it. The power, the winners write the history is always the old saw that, and
that's right.
That is people said for
but Doug, that's true. So winners do write the history books, but in the past, those that were conquered could still keep parallel books, and one wasn't mutually exclusive of the other, right?
Right.
This is now exclusionary. because there's one source of truth, and that's the internet, and that's Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT, whatever the hell you follow. And that becomes your truth. That becomes your North Star. That's the altar you worship at. And it is making us dumber in every respect. And that sucks. And I've never wanted out of tech more. This is really not a great conversation. I hate this. All right. How do we solve, guys? Seriously though, but like, I don't know. I've thought about this a lot. And the more I think about it, the worse it gets in my head. And maybe it's because I grew up in a time where you had to go read the newspaper. James mentioned, go to the library and find the card catalog, actually interact with humans, watch the news, and then go outside and talk to somebody and read the paper and see if like that reality matched. We're past that. Our reality is dictated by what we, the answers from ChatGPT, somebody's curated social media feed that we follow that reaffirms our own prejudices and beliefs. And it's radicalizing people and making them stupider. That's the end result right now that you're seeing on your television, in your social media feed, and even within our own families. And that, folks, is not good. Tell me why I'm wrong. If you're out there listening and you've listened this far, tell me why I'm wrong. Hit us up on LinkedIn in the group. You can send a note to us directly from whatever podcast player you're listening through at. Tell me why I'm wrong. I don't think I am. I really don't think I am. And if I'm not, I weep for my children, because this is going to be a sad, 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 dark world.
I think, one of the things that's kind of helped lead to this is the whole agile methodology. We've started to bring this in of fail early, fail fast, all this stuff, right? But you're supposed to correct it. But we've kind of conditioned ourselves that, if it's not perfect, that's fine. Let's keep running with it, right? And the further we get from perfect each round, but we just keep getting down and down and down. So yeah, it's a little off right now, but that's fine. Let's just keep running with it. We've gained efficiency. We've gained all this other thing. We're going to keep pushing because it's working, right? And maybe it's 5% inaccurate. And then we're not watching the gauge. It's the whole boil the frog, right? Like all of a sudden we're 2% accurate, but we're like, how the heck did we get here? But then you're dumb enough to not know that it's 2% accurate.
This is a correlation. Another issue that I have, or the pet peeve of mine, is that there was a fundamental problem we ran into on the internet, which has implications for security and everything else, and that's identity. And identity gives you attribution, and attribution gives you confidence around things and what's going on. And as that's evaporated, and you think about it, this is the ultimate endpoint of this. You have this totally anonymous set of information about, yes, it came from this AI, but where did it come from? It came from this enormous pool of stuff that's out there with no direct attribution, maybe a pile of links that came with it, but where did those go? And you try to go down. This has been an issue we've been struggling with for a long time, about how do we have responsible identity so we can attach trust and accountability and understand what people are trying to do with it, as opposed to, this free speech stuff, which is important too. You have to have both. But we went down this whole path of a lack of identity, and that's the whole basis of a lot of the security issues we have today.
Hey, by the way, guys, Doug, that's a conversation that's worthy its own podcast, I think, but with way more coffee and or bourbon than I've had this morning. Wait, no, just that's it. Never mind. Moving on. But if you're listening to this and what Doug just said was interesting, Tom Nichols, The Death of Expertise, episode 400. It's a long time ago now, but that was one of those podcasts that you wonder how some of these people get followers and why somebody that's got 20 years of expertise in a topic can end up debating with somebody that read something and stayed in a Holiday Inn Express last night, right? And a crowd listens to the idiot as opposed to the expert. We are losing our ability to tell the difference too, and that's truly terrifying. And just to throw in another thing that we could talk about in another topic, like if you're over 40 and you're looking for work, you're finding out that we do not value expertise anymore in our world. But that one's for next time, because that one I should not rant about, because that's another one. All right, guys, this is a great place to end, because I can't take any more of this right now. Like, I'm done. I'm going to need a mental health week, which is great, because I've got a really busy end of this week and busy next week. So, meh. All right, Doug, thanks for being a guest and bringing this up. I think this has been enlightening in a maybe eye-opening way to some of those folks that are listening. I definitely encourage you guys to go listen to episode 400. Tom Nichols, he is an expert, like an actual expert. He wrote a book called Death of Expertise. It's amazing. James, thanks for being on the show. Doug, once again, thanks a lot. I think we're going to bring you back again, because there's more topics on this to discuss, right?
Yep.
All right, folks, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you another time, another place, on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Ciao, y'all. Bye-bye. Adios.
This is Bella. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave my dad a review and share this with your friends. Bye.